From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris with you on this Tuesday. Good show on tap for you. We talk about so many of the wonderful services and organizations here in Middle Tennessee, especially in the Nashville area, that are in place to help those in need, the homeless specifically. And certainly that's a topic we see our local community leaders and citizens discussing what ways to better address this. And in the meantime, homelessness remains obviously a very big problem for many, and it keeps a lot of people very busy trying to keep people from overheating in the temperatures we're seeing in this place, have a place to stay, have a place to eat. And one of the very best that I've been doing stories on, and we've had people coming on for years, going back to when Larry Britton was my co-host with me, is the Nashville Rescue Mission. Larry always told me, no, Nick, I always check out, different charitable organizations and groups that are out there to help people. And too often I do so, and every once in a while I'll come across something that just doesn't seem right, or someone in charge that's working there isn't doing it the right way. And he goes, the Rescue Mission is not one of those. He always told me they were one of the best. It's one that he trusted, and that's the way it is today. And they do so much to help. And with us this morning is the man who kind of runs the show over there, Glenn Cranfield. That's high praise from my dear deceased friend, Larry Britton.
Thank you, Nick.
I still remember him telling me that.
Yeah.
He was, an investigative reporter and always looking into things.
Sure.
And he dug up some stuff over the years, and I'm sure he looked at the mission, and he just said, I'm convinced what they do is among the very best, and they do it the best.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
I mean, was it Reasoner, right?
Carl Reasoner.
Carl
Reasoner for many years was the executive director there, and he passed away in 2015, I believe it was. Yeah, and so just an incredible history.
He has sat where you've sat before with Larry and I, and he was great. But I really appreciate you coming on. We like to have you on periodically to talk about how things are going there and give you a chance to kind of, let the public know where things stand.
Yeah.
I guess one of the big issues in the summertime, especially with what we've had, yesterday broke the streak of some 20-plus days of 90-degree temperatures.
Incredible.
What does that mean for you in these extreme temperatures there at the mission?
Well, it's very dangerous for the homeless because of other debilitating illnesses and hindrances, and so just to get them in out of the heat and get refreshed and with some cool water is very, very important for us right now. And so, every single day we have the sweltering heat, come to work and go out for lunch, and you see so many people milling around trying to stay cool. And so that's our main effort right now, is just to provide some relief at them during the day when it is so super hot.
Do you see a spike in people that come around when either it gets very cold or when it gets very hot like this?
Yes, we do. There are people that live in camps and live independently like that, but when it's extreme weather, whether it's ice and cold or heat such as we're having right now, they come to us looking for help, and so we're there to help them in the midst of that.
Okay, well, I guess obviously I've been over to the mission. You have the air conditioning units, you have everything. I mean, it's a chance for them to get inside out of the sun.
That's right, because it's very dangerous, Nick. It's dangerous for any of us, right? But when you have somebody that's homeless and has just been living outside in the weather and have all these different issues coming up, hydration and so forth, very, very dangerous.
Well, I'm just curious too, when we talk about, the issues of dehydration certainly, and then just being exposed to the elements, when the homeless do come in, the ones who maybe do camp out more or have not been able to see doctors or dealing with, what are some of the more predominant health issues you see among those who come to the mission?
Well, sadly, a lot of it is mental health issues. And so about, somewhere about 30% or more are really dealing with severe mental health issues and unable to make good, clear decisions and judgment decisions in extreme weather situations. So that's one of the things that we see. And then every illness that you can imagine in the population in general, the homeless experience that too. They're not separate from that. Heart disease and diabetes and seizures and things of that nature. I remember when I first started Nashville Rescue Mission in 2012, it was an everyday occurrence when the ambulance drives up, you know, to help somebody because they don't have any other resource or option really than to really look out for emergency care and take them to the hospital for seizures or for falls, slips, all kinds of issues.
Yeah, and you know when an emergency comes, emergency room ambulance, it's the most expensive form of medical care as it is. So when someone does come and become part of the program there at the mission and is going to stay, what do you have in place for medical treatments? Is it any different, or do you still have to call the ambulance, or if there's someone there, you have staff on there that can maybe evaluate if they need the meds, or if they need some kind of, what if someone has strep throat?
Yeah, right.
What do you do?
We do have a place, we have rooms where we can isolate them from, you know, if it's minor things like cold, and we have places where we can isolate them and help them get through that. But then otherwise, we have medicine dispensary where they take the meds, or whether it's antibiotics or other issues. And then other times we just have to call the hospital or the emergency care.
Yeah, if it's something, God forbid, like a heart attack or something like that, it comes about. Lots to talk about, but before we go to the first break, Ann's on the horn. Let's take a phone call from her. Ann's very engaged with this issue. Good morning to you, Ann.
Good morning.
Hi.
This comes straight from my heart. I started in the 70s at Holy Name with Father Charlie and giving out brown bag lunches, and that's how the Union Mission started and has grew in the East Nashville area. And this is something that the Strobel family has had an impact on families in this city for years and years and years with no one ever knowing it. But I have two questions. When the rescue mission was started, it was primarily men, and it stayed that way for many, many years. And it was also independent and was run on funding without funds coming from the city, and which gave the city some control, if I understand correctly, on what was done at the mission. If you had a chance to stay separate with funding, would you do it again the same way? And my other question is, for years and years, we've had no opportunity for women and children at the mission because it was primarily men when it started. What are you doing now for the families, especially women and children, to help find placement? This is a big, big problem in our city. I have a family member that has worked on finding housing for the last year. It is impossible. And the homeless have been here for years, and the city has neglected to assist and help until now when certain areas start complaining. So how can you help the families and the women, and what changes would you make if you had the opportunity again? And thank you for everything you've done in the city. I thank the Strobel family for starting something that grew and is across the city and has more churches involved in it now than could ever be, but we still don't have opportunities for our families and children. And thank you for having yesterday's show, Nick, and for today.
Yeah. Thank you, Ann. And Ann is very involved in the community. She's a regular caller to the show and as sharp as a tack. A couple questions there. How do you want to take those?
Well, Ann, Rescue Mission started in 1954 and without government funding, and still today exists without that, for the very reasons that you said. So it's very independent from the government, both the state, local, and federal government funding. And so it's all financed through private donations. A lot of donors, about 50,000 donors across Middle Tennessee, giving meager, minimal amounts to really help fund the mission. It all adds up. And so for the very reasons you talked about, Ann, so thank you so much. And by the way, Charlie Strobel is a great friend of mine. I love what Charlie Strobel and his family have done over the years and generations, and so proud of the relationship that we have with Charlie Strobel and Room in the Inn. The next question was about women and children. And Ann, I really appreciate the question because you set me up for this answer. So in 1968, the mission started in 1954. In 1968, they began a building for the women and children on Rosa Parks. And so thankfully today we care for about 250 to 300 women and children at that campus. Currently, however, that campus has been razed or demolished, and so we're building a brand new campus there for just women, children, and families. And so at the current time, the women and children are staying at the men's campus. It's very crowded there right now, but they're all at the men's campus while this new campus is being built on Rosa Parks. So
when will that be done?
It'll be done probably, I'm thinking, September of next year, 2023.
In the meantime, how is it, and that was one of the issues, children and women and the men's campus, obviously separate quarters. How is that working out? Because I know, I mean, it's a big facility, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah, when they first moved over there, which is just about a year ago, I was very nervous for those reasons, but it's worked out really well. We have ample staff to care for all those. And of course, as you said, separated by floors at the men's campus, and we moved all the men that are on the program down to the warehouse, actually, in the basement, set up quarters for them. And so it's working really well. Temporary. It's not a long-term fix, but for temporary during construction, it's working well.
Take a break on that note. When we come back, we can take more calls if you have questions about the homeless issue. For our guest this morning, Glenn Cranfield, glad to take those. We're going to talk more about the mission, more of what the needs are, more of what's happening with the homeless population here in Middle Tennessee and Nashville right after this. Stay with us.